I'm gonna head out. Priyanka, do you have my phone number in case you need me? I'm just gonna be down the hall.
Stacy, happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah, thank you. You too. And good luck and enjoy your retirement. Good, good. It's fine. Hi everyone, welcome to our monthly seminar. Today the topic of our seminar is strategies on negotiating a job offer. And we are glad to have Marilyn Yeager with us. She is the Associate Director of the Graduate Student Service in Texas A&M University. And she joined in the Career Center in 2006 and currently is serving as an Associate Director for the Graduate Student Service. I want to welcome Marilyn here. Please, stage is yours.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Oh, it's my great pleasure. So if anyone I am soft spoken, so if you have trouble hearing me, just raise your hand. I'll either turn the volume up or I'll speak louder. I'm delighted to be here. This is the question you want to have, right? How to, and I've maybe changed the topic a little bit because I believe that you need to be able to evaluate what you're being offered as you are going through the negotiation process. And I hope today to give you some ideas about how to that question that people dread. What is your salary expectation? Some ideas about how to answer that. I'd like to take some time to talk about how to evaluate an offer, and then following that, what your strategies might be for negotiating an offer that you've been given. And then probably two really common challenging situations when you're in that process of accepting an offer and negotiating. So I'm happy, I don't have the chat open. So if you could, I guess.
If there's a question, I can do.
Yeah, so feel free to put questions in the chat or unmute yourself. So that kind of uncomfortable question, what is your salary expectation? Probably through the whole process to get to this point of being offered a position, you have probably already been researching the company, maybe making connections with people who are working in a similar role or working at that specific company. So hopefully the concept of doing research to answer your questions, it will come second nature to you. So what I'd like to start with are different online resources that you can use to get a sense of what you could put in your salary expectation answer. On the Career Center website, well, this is a short link. Every graduation, we go to graduation with a paper and pencil. And while people are, after they've received their diploma and they're kind of a captive audience, we ask them, do you have a job? Who hired you? What salary are you going to be paid? Are you continuing with education? Kind of what are your your after graduation plans. So these results are available to you. The salary results are in a separated from the employer. So you can't, in our data, you can't match an employer to a salary. But many times you can kind of guess which employer might be posting the salary. On our website, though, there is going global in the launch hire. Have you been on our website, Kirsten, or .10WU? Okay, if you have not, on the home page in the upper right, there is a link that will say Launch Hire Aggies, right? It's right next to a Chevron icon because they're a partner with us. But when you click on that Launch Hire Aggies link on the landing page, there's a resource tab. If you scroll down to the resources, through the resources, you'll see Going Global. So one thing that can be very helpful if you're an international student and you're going to be applying in industry, there is an H-1B directory, and you can see Going Global goes back, gosh, I think till like 2010. So you can see what companies have sponsored H-1Bs, the metro region that they're located in, the salary they paid, the year that they sponsored the H-1B, and the position title. So whether you're an international student or not, it can be very helpful to see salary, company, position title data. We also have, I don't think I put it in here, that you can also find similar data in Career Shift under the advanced search. It does not include the salary data, but it will include the companies that actively sponsor H-1B visas. If it is a Texas state position that you're applying to, there is a website where you can look up people's salaries. It's all public information. I think you can do it by title as well, but if you know the person that's currently in the role, you can look up their salary. This is a whole series of websites that can help you find salary information. Bureau of Labor Statistics kind of looks forward. It will give a range of these. My favorite is salary.com, but the other websites are helpful as well. So this is a screenshot from salary.com. You can put in a position title. What is really helpful is you can put in a geographic location. So I put in Associate Research Scientist in Houston, and this is the bell curve of salaries. So what you can do with this information, so one, it's very important to know that this is geographic data. This is not nationwide. If you're looking at a nationwide bell curve, know that the salaries in Texas tend to be to the left of the median because East and West Coast sort of bring up up the median, or they'll bring up the mean. But typically, if it's nationwide, you'd be on the left side of the top of the bell curve. But this is Texas, Houston, Texas data. So it can give you a sense of 25% to 75% range. If you are asked your salary expectation, I would recommend I'll say this later, but maybe you can defer answering it. You might be asked on the application and you have to give an answer, and I would recommend you give a range. But if you're in the interview, what you might want to do is say, okay, I'd like to understand more deeply what the responsibilities of this role will be, and then I'd have a better understanding of what my salary expectations would be. So what I want to point out is in the job description, they're always going to have required, and usually they will have preferred. So if you're looking at this job description and you have written proposals, been awarded grant money, you're writing reports to funding agencies, you're teaching, if you're already doing all of these things, you would fall on the right side of this bell curve because you've had the experience that you could really walk in and start contributing from day one. So as you're looking at this curve, I would recommend that you compare it to the job requirements or the job responsibilities and where you fall in your knowledge and skills, whether you would be kind of right in the middle, you have about half of it, you've done most of it, or there are some areas of growth that you would need to have. If you are not sure what career title to put into these different websites, Career Shift, which is also in the resources tab on the Career Center website in the Launch Higher Aggie section of our Career Center website, you could put in this example, I put in the company month. And well, let me explain. Career Shift is an aggregator. It's a web crawler. So anything that's publicly posted, not only in the United States, but around the world, if it is publicly posted on the internet, you can search for it in Career Shift. So it can be a wonderful resource if you're trying to figure out all of the different kind of job categories and how positions are structured in their vocabulary within a company. So I just did a quick search this morning using the keyword research and development and search by Merck. And there were quite a number, but it gives you a sense of maybe the different areas within Merck and what they call their research and development staff. So that you can put back into the different websites that we have shared to search in a geographic area by the different job titles. So encouraging you to look at these resources as just different tools that you can use in combination to help you walk into, and it's even before the negotiation, walk into the interview or filling out the application, hopefully to be interviewed, to have a sense of a salary range that would be reasonable. So now you've interviewed and you're in the enviable position that they have offered you a position. So now this is great. The key point I want to make here is that salary is important. And we'll talk about ways to negotiate salary. But when you think of the total compensation for a position, salary is maybe 2/3 of it. So these other benefits that we're going to talk about are really important to consider if you're evaluating two different offers or evaluating one offer. And that will help you maybe think about how you would like to negotiate that salary. So this is just a simple little example of two companies. So on first look, you would, oh, well, I'll take, I'm interested in both jobs. I'd be happy working for both companies. I'm going to take the higher salary. But what I want you to be aware of is company B has a higher medical premium that is not paid by the company. You have to pay for parking, which you don't have to pay for the other company. Company B does not match your 401k contributions. Company B does not have tuition repayment. Company B has state tax. So even though the base salary is quoted 5,000 more, you would actually have a lower, less money in your pocket. So you can see, you really have to look at the entire package. And I think it's more important for you, well, if you work for state or federal, it will be a pension, at least I think that is consistent. But those are disappearing. Not very many companies have pension for their retirement program anymore. So if you're looking at two competing companies, one thing that is really very important to consider is the health, like these two salaries are pretty close, right? But there's a huge difference in the health insurance offered. The company A has a higher monthly premium and they have a much larger deductible. So what I'm encouraging you, and you're young and you're healthy and you're thinking, I'm not going to need health insurance, it's okay if there's a high deductible, but I'm just encouraging you to think about your family or your children. There's another point that's not on this slide. It is the total out-of-pocket maximum for the year. And unfortunately, my son 3 years ago had a very traumatic accident, and I was grateful that there was a cap on what we would have to pay. So that can make a huge difference to your financial well-being. So you can't typically negotiate health insurance, but I think it's very important for you to think about what would be the deductible and the premium and the out-of-pocket. We'll talk about coverage on the next slide, and whether physicians are in network or out of network. So the other thing, even if the premiums are the same, the deductibles are the same, the out-of-pocket is the same, there can be a huge difference in who you can go to for medical care. So a health maintenance organization is kind of like Baylor, Scott and White. You have to be referred to a specialist, you see their doctors. Blue Cross Blue Shield is more like the center option. There are in-network providers. You can go to an out-of-network provider. It will cost you a little bit more, so you kind of need to be aware of that. But say, your child had this like rare cancer, you'd probably want to go to MD Anderson. So with the first health maintenance organization, you could not have that covered by your insurance. It would be covered in the second group. And in the third group, it's even more, they have in-network, and that's all you can see. You are free, you have more freedom to see a specialist. that you can't, they will not cover anything out of network. So you're probably, I'm older than you, have had life experience. And I think when I was your age, I didn't realize how important this is. So I just wanted to take a minute to talk about it. There are health saver accounts. We have that at A&M. You can take money out tax-free that you can use for deductibles and premiums and co-payments. So there are some ways that you can, if you do have costs for your medical care, that you can get a little bit of a tax advantage. Okay, so what I've been talking around is really the large blue section that's about 2/3 of the circle. That would be what you're paid. That would be your base salary. But then almost 1/3 of your total compensation is your retirement, your health care, the time that you get off. You don't have a lot of say in what goes into Social Security. But those are areas, if you're evaluating offers, it may not be in your best interest to always choose the offer with the higher salary. That's not to say that you could negotiate the salary, but I just could not speak with you and not make this point. Okay, so does a higher salary mean that you have more money? Well, that kind of depends on where the job is. So it's very important that you look at the cost of living calculator for housing costs, what insurance will cost you. So thankfully, there are a number of online resources that can help you determine what the cost of living would be, the difference between two cities. So best places, you could put like College Station versus, I don't know, your favorite city, and what your income is now, and it will tell you what you would have to make in that other city to have the same standard of living. Bankrate.com, it will break it down really like your budget. How much would certain items of food be, how, really they go in tremendous detail, but it will help you know with your standard of living here, what salary you would need in that new city to have the same standard of living. So you can kind of keep this in mind. This would be a minimum, right? You don't want to take a new job and have your standard of living go down. So all information that you can use in your calculation. So for strategies, people have different opinions. It does vary on the type of position that you're applying for. But I'll just give you, I think, a very safe and probably conservative way to negotiate is when you are being offered a position that you are grateful. Oh my gosh, you are so thrilled about this opportunity, and you ask for it in writing. And they're going to give you some time to evaluate the offer. It would also be very fair to ask them at that point, even before you've seen the whole written package, is any part of this negotiable? And then you have a heads up, okay, salary is negotiable. And then you can be doing your research, you can be looking at, where you would be located, the cost of living, you can start to come up with some ideas about what you hope to make. So that actually even starts before you have your interview. So negotiation, you're really trying to understand what is the range. So at A&M typically, I won't say for the whole university, but I will say within the Career Center, there's like a 10% range. So for any position, there's typically about 10%, flexibility. So you're trying to uncover information. So I think that would be fair to just make that assumption. It might be more than that, but know that there's going to be a little bit of flexibility in every position. So then what you do is you make your case. It's not that you just would like to be paid more. It's that you have to convince them that you are coming with knowledge and skills, those preferred knowledge and skills and education. You've already done the job duties. You could really contribute day one and bring value to the company. So it's really about how you can help the company be better, and then discuss options related to that. So what you can negotiate the salary. Your education level can be preferred. That could be an argument for increasing. If you have experience, well, you all have the education, but for your friends, if they don't have the education, their experience can count for years of education. So what is really relevant, looking at that job description, what is really relevant to the employer, if you've already, like if you've done a postdoc at MD Anderson and then you're applying for a full-time job at MD Anderson, you've already been trained in their culture and their system, and that would be a reason to raise your salary. If you have the preferred skills that they put in the job description, that is a point for negotiation. If they are having you move to New York or San Francisco, that could be a point for negotiation. I would, hopefully you've done your research for the organization if they do signing bonuses. Some companies very often do that, some don't. To help relocate you, it's over the last 5 years, more companies are offering tuition repayment. So they will, if they do it different ways, if you're there for so long, then they start paying, or they'll start paying right away. And if you leave before you're vested, you have to pay it back. So there's different ways for tuition repayment. And then another point of negotiation is if you have an offer on the table from another company, or that you can use that as a leverage, a point of negotiation to leverage that. So if some of you I think are interested in an academic career, okay, so I think all of that holds, except for you, you need to know what space you're going to be given. What is your startup budget to set up your lab, and what equipment do you have access to? What equipment can you buy? What can be really important as you're trying to set up your lab and your research. What is your teaching load going to be that first semester, that first year? Will you have teaching assistants that can help with that? So that's, teaching load is not money, right? But it could be very important to you to give you time to successfully set up your lab, and determining, is there space for you? Is there space allocated? That I think is a really important discussion. Are they going to, well, for even industry, are they gonna pay for your professional memberships? Are they gonna allow you to travel and go to conferences? And another point of flexibility or another point of negotiation might be your work schedule and what the expectations are related to that. What can be virtual, what needs to be in person. That's kind of changed since COVID. So general kind of big overview when they call with a verbal offer. And typically that will happen. They will not, first they want to make sure that you're going to accept the position. And then when you say, yes, thank you, I'm so excited, then they'll give you a written offer. Then they'll go through the formal process of making the written offer. At that point, I think, and I'm repeating myself, but I think that's the perfect time to ask, is there any flexibility within this offer? And then you can use that information as you kind of are building your case for negotiation. So we talked about making, looking at from the job description, from talking to people within the department, from the questions that you asked during your interview, you'll hopefully have a much clearer idea of what it is they really need. And then you can show how you are a preferred candidate because of your experiences. So you would make your case. I would recommend that you do that by Zoom or by phone, and not really do that by email because there can be miscommunication. Discussing the options of where they could maybe give, where you could give. And then oftentimes you'll follow up with a summary of what that conversation was. So it's sort of, there's a paper trail, and then you ask for the changes that were agreed upon to be put in writing. And then you sign that agreement. So again, kind of going back to your research, what they say they want, what they're preferring, that can really help guide you in what you ask for. And I think it's always an ask. It's always an ask, is there flexibility rather than I need, because that, not for postdocs, but I have worked with employers that really went out of their way to create a position that they, for someone, like someone showed up and they really, we could really use this person. They created an opportunity for them. They really put effort into making it the most competitive offer they could, only to have the student, be sort of dismissive of that and kind of not grateful. So I've seen the other side of it. So I think I maybe err from having heard those comments. So I think it's really important, whatever they offer you, to always be grateful for it. And that doesn't mean that you can't make your case and show, how gosh, with your background, you could just really, you could really start contributing from day one. Anyway, you get the gist of what I'm trying to say, that I think just being polite, asking, having a conversation is kind of the tone that you're trying to achieve. So don't make demands. Ask questions is, I think, in my opinion. Okay, so if it depends on there is some difference depending on what type of position you're applying for. If you're more in outside sales, then that stronger negotiation, I think, would be welcomed. In a research lab, I don't know. That's my opinion. I talk with other people, get other opinions. But I think just being polite and asking questions is a good approach. Focus on the base salary. It is important what you come in on, because all of your merit increases or cost of living increases are based on your current salary. So it does make a difference over time, what your incoming salary is. Convince them, share with them why you think you can really contribute. Because number one, they have a need and they need help, and they want someone who wants to be a part of their organization. So in your negotiation, you can be sharing, this is how I can help you. This is what I'm bringing. That's very respectful. That's kind of music to their ears. That's what they want to hear. How by hiring you, you can take some of the load off of them. And there can be real differences in the type of organization that you are applying to. Like Texas A&M, there are salary bands, and there's only a certain amount of negotiation that can go within that band. But if it was a startup, they might have a whole lot more flexibility, especially if you're like the unicorn that they've been looking for and you have the combination of skills. So there's a lot to take into account when you begin to negotiate, and I think it all starts with a question. So if it's no for salary negotiation, that doesn't mean that you can't still negotiate. You can negotiate for relocation costs. There could potentially be a sign-on bonus. So the sign-on bonus would be money in your pocket, but it wouldn't be your salary. So it's easier for the company kind of long-term, because it's kind of a middle way. It's like, instead of giving you nothing or raising your salary, they could give you a bonus. So that's like a one-time bonus that won't affect your merit or your cost of living increases. So if it hasn't been talked about, paying for your professional development, I've offered for employees that I've hired that were just exceptional, that we reviewed their salary at 6 months instead of a year. So that can be a way that you can boost that base. Okay, so it's a kind of a bold move on the employee, because they're saying, in 6 months, I'm gonna have results that are gonna wow you. Okay, it's very confident, but it can work, right? And so then at 6 months, your salary can be revisited. So when you get the end of year merit, it's based on a higher base salary. So that can be a strategy. Maybe you need flexibility in your work schedule. We talked about teaching load and your startup package. And I'm absolutely not the expert on the academic needs of setting up a lab. So hopefully you have support from your PI who can help you negotiate those conversations in your field. So before I go to challenging, anyone have any questions? Is this new, kind of common sense? Okay, all right. So I think two situations that come up all the time. you're doing multiple interviews and you get, we love you, here's an offer. But you're not sure that you want to take that offer because you're interested in the other companies. Okay, this is really important. I really want you to hear me on this. It might feel uncomfortable to you to reach out to the, okay, so we're going to say company A is a company that gave you the offer. So you might feel really uncomfortable reaching out to all the other companies that you have interviewed with or you will be like imminently interviewing with. But please believe me when I say employers want you to let them know if you're about to take another job. Because I've talked with numerous employers and like they have their hiring process, you might be a top candidate, but their process is just moving a little bit slower than the other company. I've heard employers say, you know, it was just awful. We extended an offer and then our top candidate said 2 weeks earlier that they had accepted another job. So if you've never done this, it may feel uncomfortable to you to reach out to a company and say, I've been given an offer, I have until this date to reply. Is it possible that you could get back to me on your consideration of hiring me before that deadline? And if they say, no, thank you for reaching out to us, we would know by this date. Okay, so maybe it's a week later than the original deadline that you have. And offer to be helpful. Is there anything else I can provide with you? Any other information you might need? So finding out when they expect to make that decision. Then you go back to company A and ask for an extension for a week or 2 weeks. Okay, I've heard recruiters say that when someone asks for an extension, they kind of know that the person is really considering other options. So I think in that conversation, you want to convey to company A, you're really excited. You just need a little bit more time to make your decision. You really feel like you could contribute. I mean, you need to let them know that you're seriously considering, that the timing is just not quite working. If a company is not respectful of that, that's important information to know, right? That says something about the company culture and how the company treats their employees. So positive or negative, you know, if they agree, great. If they don't agree, that's a data point that you know might be a signal of what is to come. So that's what I would recommend, that you actually have power and influence. It may be something that you've never done before, but please believe me that companies would appreciate it if you would reach out and have that conversation. Okay, so when you have, maybe even a better situation is if you've interviewed, you have multiple offers. And then it's really challenging, which one do you choose? And I, as we've been talking today, the entire compensation package would be part of it. But I think really it's important to think about your personal values and the culture of the company, and if those align, the location, the cost of living for that city, thinking, you know, in the future, what are the opportunities for growth? and just kind of reflecting on the people that you've met and where would you most enjoy working. So I think those are all really important factors to consider. And then you can again negotiate if you really kind of like company B better than company A, that company A has a little better compensation, you know, then you can use that to leverage an increase in the company that you're wanting to go to. So that having, I mean, I would like to recommend that you do that authentically, like when there really are two offers on the table and you're interested in both of them. That to me seems like honest negotiation. Sometimes it happens that people apply for a job, get an offer, and use that as leverage for the position we currently have. I feel like that's not as honest. I guess it's that may be a judgment on my part, but when you absolutely have two offers on the table, you can have a discussion. You know, if could you help me get to my number? Is there any way that we could get closer to this number to make my decision easier? Would be a suggestion. So, I guess bottom line, if you were gonna just take one thought away from this, it's just really evaluate what you're being offered. Because if you're just focused on salary, that may not lead to the best results for you. And then trying to think about, hopefully I've talked about a process that you can go through to respectfully negotiate and really convey to the employer the value that you could bring and the value that you deserve to be paid. So are there any questions? Are any of you in this process, have experienced this, ways that you've handled it?
There is one question in Zoom. Do you want to read it or I can read it?
I've been running into multiple jobs where they are not willing to give a title to the position as a way to keep the salary low. This has been happening in mid to high level positions in academia, scientific and professional institutions. How do you combat this and find a way to negotiate? That's new to me. It just seems I'm just trying to wrap my head around how they could hire you for a position and not have a position title. I mean, I don't know how they could do that. I mean, okay, so my first thought, maybe this is just something new, a new trend that I'm not aware of. But I'm thinking, if they offer you one, I would really want to be clear about what the expectations and responsibilities would be, even if you don't have the title. But when they offer you, when you say, yes, I'd love to work for you, may I have this offer in writing, I cannot imagine them not having a title. Because you're gonna go into a pen, your HR has to put you somewhere. You can't just, unless it's a startup, maybe that would be different. But I can't imagine that, I just can't imagine you not having a position title. So maybe earlier in the process, they're being a little bit vague. Well, that would be a wonderful invitation. You know, I would just hope that you could clarify for me more what the responsibilities and expectations would be for this position. Are you considering that I could fit into more than one position. I mean, I would just keep asking questions until I got an answer. And if I didn't get a response to that, that would be a real warning flag for me about the culture of that organization. I'm sorry, I just can't comprehend hiring someone and not giving them their job title. That there just seems something very off about that. But I thought the same thing when I first heard about a one-page resume, or one-page CV, because I thought, well, your CV isn't one page, but now depending on what you're applying for, a fellowship or a grant, they might ask for a summary, but to me, even that seems more clear. They're being kind of why they're asking for that shortened version.
What about if somebody is trying to hire you for a position? So for example, a lot of PIs will hire postdocs rather than techs because postdocs are cheaper than techs. So in that situation, they might have a title, but it's not the appropriate title. So how would you deal with that? If you're applying for a job and you recognize that the responsibilities that they're asking for match a more expensive position, they want you to hire you for a cheaper position.
Okay, so if I'm understanding, if we are being hired, have the responsibilities of a higher paid position that they want to hire you as a postdoc, I would ask about, because if it's a postdoc, it would be time limited, right? 2 years, 3 years, I mean, they would be hiring you for a term. So that seems like a point of negotiation. I'm really seeking a full-time, permanent opportunity. That, to me, that just seems like a clear point to negotiate. And telling them I really feel that I could help, with my knowledge and experience, my record of qualifications, my record of securing money, I really feel that I could help your department really thrive. So I don't mean to be simplistic, but that or naive, but again, that's kind of how they're treating you. And is that what you want? I mean, I believe there are many options. So if somebody's trying to lowball you and you try to ask questions and find out about future opportunities or current opportunities, and you just get the feeling that they're not paying you what you're worth, I think I would look somewhere else. I know that's easy for me to say, right? If you're finding it challenging to find an opportunity. The other way to look at it is if you were here for a year or two, you'd gain more experience, you'd be more competitive. And I would continue, building a professional network and contacts. But to me, I think it's really important for your long-term satisfaction to pay attention to how they treat people. And is that when you're getting kind of signals that they're not treating people fairly, maybe there are other options that you want to consider. Is that common?
I don't know how common it is. I've heard of it. I've seen it happen too. It's not happening to me. But yeah, no, I've seen it at a few.
I would say one of the things that I see is often in positions there are, there's clearly management, is listed as certain responsibilities. But the title might not necessarily be one that reflects that. So I think certainly in an academic environment, you can have a lab manager versus a research assistant. And so, and those are two different salaries, really. So I think, and I've seen certainly a number of places where, the idea would be to hire as a research assistant or, an assistant scientist, but, you're actually, potentially leading a team of people and, or you're having more of a management thing. So, I mean, how would you address something like that? Because I feel like that's kind of what also you were getting at.
So during the interview, I think just trying to have real clarity on what are the expectations. Is there any supervision? Is there any management? What would be my role? Who would be my supervisor? Like, to really try to imagine what it would be like in that position and ask for clarity. Yeah, I would hope that people would be more, it should be in the job description, but, and that would be a point of negotiation if what they say they want you to do does not match what is in the job description, then that would absolutely be a negotiation. Because they're wanting more leadership, more managerial responsibilities, but they're not seeing that in the job description. And that would be, and it's kind of an equity issue, internal equity. Right, if you're the same position as someone else, but you're being expected to do much more, that is an internal equity position. I hope that helps.
No, that's very helpful. I think also especially looking to see who you would be, going to. Whereas if you're going to, a CFO or, something like the head of R&D is the person that you're answering to versus, another scientist in a lower position. That would also, I think,
Right.
be ways of figuring out and then, discussing.
And another maybe idea for questions that you could ask during the interview is, you have to be careful about this, in my opinion. You don't really wanna, try to say it this way. If you're being hired for a position, you absolutely want to convey to them that you're really excited about that position. Okay, that's number one. I'm really happy, I plan to be here, I plan to contribute, I'm excited. It is fair to say, assuming years in the future, when I fully mastered this, so kind of give that preface, what would the career ladder look like after? But be really careful, because I've had employers say, I don't think people even want to do this role, I think they're just looking for the next position. So that's why I'm kind of cautiously, I love this job, I'm gonna work in this job, I'm gonna master this job, I'm gonna train other people. And when I'm ready for the next step, what would that step be? And that might help, I don't know, to give a little more clarity about, if you're already the manager, then you would not be moving into a manager role, right?
Yeah.
Just a thought.
We have one more question in Zoom. So the question is, in academia, is it professional to reach out to people that work in the similar position in the institute you got the offer to ask about the salary range?
Oh, I would absolutely. Well, okay. So is it professional to reach out to people that work in a similar position in the institute you have the offer and ask about the salary range? So that's one reason why I showed the Texas salaries website. If it was someone I knew And I don't know, talking about money can be a little uncomfortable. I don't know that I would reach out to someone and ask their salary if I didn't know them. But maybe what you could do is say, from my research, this is what I found. Does that sound reasonable to you? Maybe I would feel more comfortable asking that than just like, hey, I've never met you before, but what salary range would you recommend for that? To kind of show that you're trying and you're asking, or do you have any other resources that I could do further research, kind of showing you're really trying to answer the question. But it might, I don't know if other states are the same way as Texas, where, because they're public positions, that the salary is public. If it's in a different state, it might be worth trying to see if there's a website where you can find state salaries.
If someone's salary is partly supported by the department and partly supported, funded by the grant of the PI, do you think that will be reflected in the Texas salary and the website?
No, I think it would just be what is funded by the state. And so that could be helpful too, because then you might realize, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to find my summer funding because of what they're paying. In my opinion, I think I don't think the state would know what the grants were and the additional funding that people had. I think they would only show what they were paid from Texas A&M University. That being said, this is not exactly the same situation, but for many years I taught for biology, but I worked at the Career Center. And both of those were combined in my salary. But I'm assuming most of these funding agencies would be outside of the university. So then I don't think they would know. So like if you were doing something with, I don't know, one of the system groups or institutes, it might reflect. That's a really good question. I don't know that I really know the answer completely. I think we're very polite. We haven't even started shuffling papers or right. But I think we've come to the end of our time. The slides will be shared. There is a way to reach out to Dr. Paul Rainey or myself if you have follow-up questions, and we'll give you the slides. Hopefully remind you of some of the websites you can go to. I hope it just gave you some things to think about and a process that you'll go through and reflect on what you're worth. You can contribute to a company's success, and it is fair that you get fairly paid for what they're asking you to do.
Okay, so if you don't have any other questions, so we can thank Marilyn for her time and the beautiful presentation. And we have few announcements, and can you please announce?
Yeah, so we do have travel awards and professional development awards available in Postdoc Association, and the due date is December 4th. And you guys can find the details on the website, and if you're interested, you can apply. Thank you. That's okay.
எக்ஸ்பெரிமெண்ட் பண்ணி சரி அவங்க பேசி முடிக்கிற வரைக்கும் அதுக்கப்புறம் இன்னொரு 1 hour இது என்னன்றது நான் இவ்வளவு
Or take it home, just from the car, go back to my office and show some things we should step away. All right, thank you.
இது மார்னிங் பிரேக்ஃபாஸ்ட் எடுத்துறது இது ரொம்ப யூஸ்ஃபுல்லா இருக்கு. கிடையாது இப்போ நடந்து போனாங்களோ ஒரு பையன் வச்சுட்டு நடந்து போனாங்க அவங்கள்ட்ட தான் இருக்கும். அவங்க இது மேபி அவங்களோட கண்ட்ரோல்ல இருக்காது. ஓபன் பண்ணி பாருங்க.
This time it is easy to come from into two
That I had to wait for someone to come. Well, maybe I was early.
okay.
I got here. Some things like that.
So it's supposed to be open around 11:30.
So I just waited.
You should have like just informed me.
I was starting to write an email, but then somebody came. So everyone's really up here to give updates. That's fine. Yeah. Yeah.
It's good having you again.
Thank you. I'm wondering. Thank you. It's really quite a space to hear.
Through Dr.
Thank you.
It's Dr. So I was just hoping. Graduate student dropping. Oh,
And I'll just take it. It's subject on it. So we can, that's what I plan for you. Just put it down. Oh, kilo price. Just look at it.
சார் கீழே போடாங்க. இங்க கீழே போட மாட்டேன். வீட்டுக்கு எடுத்துட்டு போயிருவேன்.
Can we super? You don't have this. I need to so I need to one spoon. I was like, everything inside. I'm like, looking for the
This one?
And so,
Even I don't like this, but it was
Yeah, I was gonna drop in one of the optional sections. Graduate students.
it was nice. Even I don't like stuff like this. I just try to speak something. It's hard.
Yeah, I think they were planning it. That's okay. It's the end of the semester, so it's understandable. Okay, yes, you are. Thank you so much. I'm happy with that. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
இல்ல இல்ல நாங்க இங்க இருந்து சாதம் எடுத்தோம் நியூராலஜி டிபார்ட்மெண்ட் இருக்குல்ல அங்க இருந்து போயிட்டு சாதம்லாம் எடுத்துட்டோம் அப்பெல்லாம் நான் டப்பா தான் எடுத்துட்டு வந்தேன் இதெல்லாம் நான் முன்னாடி கலெக்ட் பண்ணேன் பிளாஸ்டிக் அப்படின்னு சொல்லிட்டு ரூமுக்கு வந்து ஒரு ஷெல்ஃப் ஃபுல்லா இந்த மாதிரி பாட்டில் தான் வச்சிருக்கேன் நிறையவே யூஸ் ஆகும்
நல்லா இருந்துச்சு சீசன் இருந்துச்சுன்னா சாப்பிட்டேன்
பாட்டில் நான் நினைச்சேன் அந்த பாட்டில்
கட்டி சாப்பிட்டேன் சீஸ் எல்லாம் சாப்பிட்டு மட்டும் எக்ஸ்பிளனேஷன் இது
ஓ அது அந்த மாதிரி சாப்பிடணுமா
நோட்டீஸ் பண்ணது ஃபுல்லி சுட்டு சார் பண்ணி ஒரு ஸ்பூன் எடுத்து வெயிட் பண்ணிட்டு இருந்தேன்
நான் கேட்டேன் சந்தா பண்ணிட்டே இருக்கேன் இந்த சைட்ல
காமெடி
நம்பி ஏதோ வாயில வச்சிட முடியாது
ஒரு $300 last week super last month dia aku pernah maksud dia aku pernah lihat வேற ஏதாவது ஆர்டர் பண்ணி
நெக்ஸ்ட் டைம் நீ இந்தியன் ஃபுட் ஆர்டர்
வாய்ப்பே இல்லை. ஏன்?
You guys see Priyanka?
she has gone yeah
Our food is here.
hmm?
Her book is also here.
Yeah, we need to like clear all this stuff.
Yeah, I don't think she'll go.
அங்கதான் எடுத்து எடை கட்டி அங்க வைக்கிறோம்.
ப்ளூ பேக்கர்னு சொல்லி நம்ம
அது
பிரசன்டேஷன்
எப்ப பார்த்தாலும் வந்துட்டு தான்
அது நல்லா இருக்குங்க.
எனக்கு பிடிக்கவே பிடிக்காது.
இந்த மாதிரி சூப்புக்கு அது எவ்வளவோ தேவை.
அது வந்து ஒரே ஒரு ஸ்பூன் எடுத்து ஊத்தி சாப்பிடுறது.
நீங்க அதெல்லாம் சாப்பிடுறீங்களா?
அதுலயே வா.
சில்லின்னு சொல்லுவாங்க. இந்த ஊர்ல சில்லின்னு சொன்னாங்க.
எனக்கு செஞ்சுட்டாங்க. நினைச்சேன் சரி வெயிட் பண்ணிட்டே இருக்கேன். ஒரு ஸ்பூன்
மேகி சூப்லாம் இருக்கும் இல்லையா, அந்த மாதிரி சரி வச்சிருப்பாங்க போல இருக்கு.
அது மட்டுமே 4 டப்பா தான் இருக்கு. அது காமனா எல்லாருக்கும் கொடுக்கறது. யாருக்கு ஒரு டப்பா ஒவ்வொருத்தருக்குன்னு சொன்னாங்களா?
நான் பார்த்தேன், அதாவது அந்த ஒயிட் கலர் கப் அது ஒண்ணுதான் இருந்தது, இது 2 இருக்கு. ஸோ ஆளுக்கு ஒண்ணு எடுத்துட்டு போயிட்டாங்க. இது எக்ஸ்ட்ரா
எனக்கு அந்த பசங்க தூக்கிட்டு சிரிப்பு. வெயிட்டிங்ல இருக்கு, எதுவும் சொல்லக்கூடாது.
அப்பவே சொல்லிருக்காங்களே, இது பொதுவாக
பண்ணே போயிடும். எனக்கு அது என்னன்னு தெரியாது வேற. கேரமல் சாஸ் நினைச்சிட்டேன்.
அதுக்கு மேல ப்ரௌனி முக்கிய சாப்பிட்டீங்க.
எனக்கு தெரியாது. பட்டரே சீஸ் நினைச்சு
அதை பார்த்துட்டு சரி அது பட்டர் தான் அப்படின்னு எடுத்துக்காம வந்துட்டு ரெக்கமெண்டேஷன் அந்த சீஸ் நல்லா இருக்கும். இந்த
நல்லா இருந்துச்சா இல்லையா? அது பட்டர் மாதிரியே இல்ல.
அதுல டேஸ்டே இல்லையே. நல்லா இருக்கு நல்லா இல்லன்னு எப்படி தெரியும்?
அதுல வந்து ரொம்ப ஆப்வியஸா அது பட்டர்னே தெரியுது. இன்னைக்கு உங்க தவிர்த்து கேட்டா நல்லா சாப்பிட்டேன்னு கேட்டா பட்டர்
ஆக்சுவலி அது மட்டும்தான் நான் சாப்பிட்டேன்.
இருக்குமே. நீங்க நினைச்சிட்டீங்க இந்த சீஸ் 2 பாக்ஸ் சாப்பிட்டோன்னே நல்லா ஃபுல் ஆயிடுச்சு. வீட்டுல வாங்கி
ஈஸியா நல்லா இருக்காது. இவ்வளவு நல்லா இருக்கு. What did Stacey say? She came, right?
Yeah, she has another meeting, so she has to leave.
Did she take lunch?
I think yeah, at the beginning she came and she took lunch. So she has to leave, so we can clean and then we can leave the stuff on the cart outside her office.
Okay.
Or if we have any break room or somewhere, we can. I think
Break room?
We can do break room. So I think we can put it on the cart and then put the cart outside her office. Break room.
Why in the kitchen you can keep? No?
Yeah, in the kitchen we can keep. The janitor, if they want, they will take and they will go.
I think Stacey will take care of it. Never do that.
With your phone.
No, she'll come back.
அவங்களுக்கு மெயில் பண்றீங்களா? இல்ல, அது நிறைய வேலை இருக்குது. பெரிய இன்னைக்குதான் முடிஞ்சது என்னோட action. ஆனா நீங்க இது ஒரு ஸ்பூன் சாப்பிடணும். நீங்க
அவங்க அதை கேரமல் நினைச்சு நீங்க பண்ணலன்னா அதை வந்து ப்ரௌனிக்குள்ள முக்கி சாப்பிட்டுருப்பாங்க.
இல்ல, நான் அப்படிலாம் உடனே செஞ்சிருக்க மாட்டேன். லைட்டா டேஸ்ட் பண்ணி எனக்கு ஆக்சுவலி இது நல்லா பிடிச்சிருந்தது. லைட்டா தான் எடுத்து டேஸ்ட் பண்ணேன்.
அசலி பட்டது அமுல் பட்டது
ஆக்சுவலி இப்ப இருக்க ஆரம்பிச்சிச்சு எனக்கு. நான் எடுக்கும் போது ஒரு சாலிடா இருந்தது. நான் ஃபோர்க்ல குத்தி கடிச்சு
பைத்தியமா இவன்.
நான் டெவலப்
அது உருக ஆரம்பிச்சிருச்சு பட்டர் மாதிரி தெரியுது.
எனக்கு கோவம் வந்து அப்புறம் நான் சாப்பிட்டுருவேன். என்னடா இது புதுசா
பத்தா கூட சரி பண்ணு.
நான் வந்து சரி இந்த பிளேட் வச்சு மூடிக்குவேன்.
அது மூட முடியும். அது பெரிய லஞ்ச் பிளேட்ல வச்சுக்கோ.
ஒரு 4 பிளேட் வச்சு சிமெண்ட் போட்டு தான் மூட முடியும்.
இல்ல வேணும்னா இந்த பெரிய பிளேட் எடுத்துக்க வேண்டியதான்.
ஒரு ஐடியா கொடுக்குறேன். அந்த ஸ்பூன் எல்லாம் கீழே கூட்டிட்டு கவனி அந்த கவர்ல போட்டு
அதெல்லாம் வேணாங்க, பரவாயில்ல, பார்த்துட்டு போறாங்க. என்ன இருக்கு
இந்த நேரத்துக்கு டிபார்ட்மெண்ட் எல்லாரும் அக்செப்ட் பண்ணிட்டாங்க. இப்படிதான்
சாப்பாடு ரைட்.
ஐயோ சம்பந்தமே இல்லாம நான் இப்ப எல்லாத்தையும் சாப்பிட்டுருக்கேன். பசியும்
சாப்பாடு கொஞ்சம்
நாங்க சாப்பாடு நைட் சாப்பிடுறேன்.
ஒரு
பொட்டேட்டோ பேக்டு பொட்டேட்டோ
வெறும் பொட்டேட்டோ.
சூப்பரா இருக்குமா?
ஞாபகம் இருக்குல்ல நான் அன்னைக்கு
எனக்கு என்ன பண்றது
லூயிசியானா இதுக்கு போகும்போது நான் இதெல்லாம் நான் சமைச்சேன்.
ரொம்ப குடும்பம்.
நான் திறந்து பார்த்தேன்.
நானும் சூடா இருந்தோம்னா நான் என்னமோ நினைக்கிறேன்.
போயிடுச்சு.
அப்ப தூக்கி வச்சுட்டு இன்னொன்னு
சோ இப்ப புரியுது எதுக்கு இதெல்லாம் கொடுத்துருக்காங்கன்னு.
அதோட வச்சு சாப்பிடணும்.
ஆமா அது கொஞ்சம் நோண்டி அது மேல போட்டு
வேற வேலை இல்ல
வேலை
நமக்கு.
வெட்டிக்கிறேன். உட்காந்து யோசிச்சுட்டே இருந்தேன். இதை வச்சு என்ன பண்றது? ஓகே ஈவினிங் போய் குத்து பண்ணலாம். ஆல்ரெடி வேக வச்சு குத்துறேன். ஆல்ரெடி பாயில் பொட்டேட்டோ இருக்கு. நம்ம போய் வீட்டுக்கு சைட் டிஷ்
வேகமா சாப்பிட்டுருக்கீங்க. அவங்க பிரசன்டேஷன் முடிக்கிறதுக்கு நம்ம சாப்பிட்டோம்னா போய் வேலையை பார்க்கலாம்.
இங்க ஜாலியா ரொம்ப இவ்வளவு சூடா எப்படி இருக்கு?
அலுமினியம் ஃபாயில் அதனால
நல்ல அலுமினியம்.
நமக்கெல்லாம் நல்லா செக்டியாது. பொட்டேட்டோ யார் சாப்பிடுவோம்?
யார் சாப்பிட சொன்னாங்க? உங்களுக்கு என்னன்னா நீங்க இதெல்லாம் போட்டு இதே ஒரு போட்டு சாப்பிடுங்க. லோடட் பேக் போட்டு லோடட் பேக்
கிராண்ட் பொட்டேட்டோ
எல்லாமே
மேபி அது வந்து இல்ல அது வந்து இந்த இதுல சுட வச்சதுல கருகிடுக்கும்னு நினைக்கிறேன்.
பைத்தியம்
என்ன நினைச்சிட்டு இருக்கீங்க நீங்க? நான் பாக்குறேன்
இதெல்லாம் யாருதான் சாப்பிடுவோம் அப்படின்னு நினைச்சு பார்த்தோம். அவங்க கடுப்பு போயிட்டோம்.
அந்த கான்ஃபரன்ஸ் டிராவல் அவார்டு இருக்குல்ல, நாங்க வந்து மார்ச் மந்த் லிம்பாட்டிக் போறோம். நான்
அப்ளை பண்ணுங்க.
இப்பவே அப்ளை பண்ணணும்ல.
டிசம்பர் 4th வெப்சைட்ல போயிட்டு என்னென்னலாம் வேணும்னு பார்த்து அப்ளை பண்ணுங்க. பட் நீங்க இதுக்கு முன்னாடி 2 செமின் இதுவாச்சும் அட்டெண்ட் பண்ணிருக்கீங்க இருக்கணும். போஸ்ட் ஆஃபீஸ் அசோசியேஷன்
அட்டெண்ட் பண்ணிருக்கேன்.
இது மாதிரி அட்டெண்ட் பண்ணீங்களா? என்ன அட்டெண்ட் பண்ணீங்க? நான் உங்களை பார்த்ததே இல்லையா?
அதான் அட்டெண்ட் பண்ணிருக்கேன்.
நீங்க இருந்திருக்க மாட்டீங்க.
அங்க அட்டெண்டன்ஸ்ல சைன் இருக்கணும், செக் பண்ணுவாங்க. நீங்க அட்டெண்ட் பண்ணிருக்கேன் மண்டே மட்டும் அட்டெண்ட் பண்ணுங்க.
2 பேரும் லஞ்ச்
என்ன செமினார் போறீங்க? என்ன செமினார் போறீங்க?
கான்ஃபரன்ஸ்
எங்க இருக்குது?
கலிபோர்னியா போறோம் நாங்க.
இதுக்கு டேட்டா என்ன இருக்குன்னு தெரியல. எப்ப டெட்லைன்? இது அப்ஸ்ட்ராக்ட் டெட்லைன்
மார்ச்.
என்ன சொல்றீங்க? மார்ச் அப்ஸ்ட்ராக்ட் டெட்லைன், கான்ஃபரன்ஸும் மார்ச்.
கான்ஃபரன்ஸ் வந்து மே நினைக்கிறேன்ல, மே.
ஓகே
இல்ல நீங்க தப்பா சொல்றீங்க நினைக்கிறேன்.
மார்ச் தான் நான் அப்ஸ்ட்ராக்ட் டெட்லைன்.
ஷூரா? மத்தியார் இது போடுறதுக்கு நல்ல டேட்டா ரெடி பண்ணிட்டு இருக்காங்க. இது போட்டு எனக்கு போயிட்டு
எப்படி இந்த ஜிவிஆரையும் கல்ஃபும் ஒரே டைம் இதுலயும் ஏதோ 2 மாத்தி பேக் டு பேக் நடக்கும்.
ஏபிஎஸ் இப்போ நடக்குது நம்பர்ல டெட்லைனே எப்படி நடக்குது?
என்னது ஏபிஎஸ்?
பிசியாலஜி.
தேங்காய் எண்ணெய் ஊத்தி இந்த மாதிரி தேங்காய் ஸ்மெல் வருது.
Sometimes தேங்காய் எண்ணெய்
நேத்து
ஊத்துவாங்க.
பிரியாணி பண்ணிச்சு.
முடிச்சிட்டேன்.
சரி நாளைக்கு போலாம். சாண்டாஸ் வேர்ல்ட் இல்லையா?
அது குக் பண்ணணும்.
பண்றேன் இன்னைக்கு பண்றது. நாளைக்கு போயிடலாம். நீங்களும் வரீங்களா? சாண்டாஸ் வண்டர்லேண்ட். இங்க இருந்து ஒரு வீட்டுக்கு 20 minutes மாசோட்டா போற வழியில இங்கே ஏரியால இங்கே லைட்ஸ் போட்டு சும்மா இந்த கிறிஸ்மஸ் நியூ இயர் ஹாலிடேஸ்க்காக போட்டு வச்சிருப்பாங்க. அது ஒரு 2-3 மாசம் ஓப்பன் ஆகும்.
அதுக்கு கேப்ல போறதுன்னா அப்படியே போயிடலாம்.
பஸ் இருக்கு போல.
கேளு, அது வந்து பஸ் இங்க இருந்து கிடையாது. மால்ல எடுத்துட்டு போய் காரை விட்டு அங்க இருந்து ஃப்ரீ ஷெட்ல இல்லன்னா பார்க்கிங் டைரக்டா நம்ம இங்கே காரை விடலாம். பார்க்கிங் தூக்கி போய் வந்து சார். ஆனா அத்தனை பேருக்கு தான் நம்ம leave கொடுத்தது.
நான் வரல.
எங்க அம்மா அப்பா வரும்போதே காமிச்சேன். இங்கதான் நம்ம சாட்டர்டே வரோம். இங்க என்ன இருக்கும் இது ஏதோ லைட்ஸ் நீங்க பார்த்தாச்சு அப்படின்ட்டாங்க. உள்ளெல்லாம் பார்த்தேன். நான் நினைச்சேன் என்னி நானே 4 ஐட்டம் வச்சிருக்கேன் காலேஜ் ஸ்டேஷன் ஐட்டனரியில. அதையும் நீங்க வெளில இருந்து பார்த்தா ஓகே தான். அதுக்கு முடியாது.
அது ஒரு ரேட்டை சொல்லிதான் எங்க 40 ரூபாய்.
ஃப்ரீ இல்லையா?
என்ன இந்த ஊர்ல என்ன ஃப்ரீயா கிடைக்கும்?
நான் நினைச்சேன் போனோம்ல மார்க்கெட் போனோம்ல மாதிரி சும்மா அப்படியே போயிட்டு
நல்லா இருக்கும். ஒன் டைம் வாட்ச் பார்த்து
இவங்க வீட்டுல லைட் எல்லாம் பார்த்தா ஆன்னு பார்ப்பாங்க.
ரொம்ப அழகா
அதான் சரி போயிட்டு இருக்கோம். ஆக்சுவலா ஏதோ ஏர்லி பேர்ட் ஆஃபர்லாம் இருந்தது.
இப்ப வரைக்கும் இருக்கு. நவம்பர் 29 வரைக்கும் இருக்கு. கூட எனக்கு ஃபேஸ்புக்ல வந்துச்சு. அது நான் போன தடவை புக் பண்ணல. நான் தான் அதுல இருந்து எனக்கு வந்துட்டே இந்த வருஷம் வரியா, வேலைக்கு வரியா கேக்குது. பார்ட் டைம் ஜாபுக்கு வரியா?
ஓ அப்படிலாம் வருமா?
எதுவுமே சாப்பிட
To go box, right? No, I could take some. Go boxes. From next month onwards, you guys bring 2 boxes.
What about that black box? Yeah, 2 black box. Yeah.
என்ன கெட்டு போகாது கொஞ்ச நாள்.
ரூம்ல எடுத்துட்டு போய் அப்பப்போ தோன்றப்ப சாப்பிட வேண்டியது.
இதெல்லாம் எடுத்து வைக்கணுமா? நான் எல்லாம் சாப்பிட்டேன்.
அவங்க டைம் ஆகும். நம்ம
the same.
I want to take one aluminum just one pound. Yeah, that's take some food.
Ordered this much food, right?
No, we did not. This time I think we had.
questions? Just
Your meeting has ended.